Hi, everyone. Welcome to Crushing Doubts Q&A every Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Of course, I say every Thursday, and it's actually not every Thursday, but it is supposed to be most Thursdays. I'm actually here on location, but wanted to be here with you this week because I had missed a week before. I'm going to be off for 2 weeks after this, so I figured let's get the questions in because, as we know, questions keep coming. You guys all have questions, and as far as I'm concerned, that's why I do this, because just to introduce you to anybody who doesn't know who I am. I had mind-body suffering for 8 years, back pain every single day, spasms multiple times a day, some of the worst pain I've ever experienced. And I couldn't get answers about why that was going on at the time. Now, of course, since then, it's now, 13 years later, and I haven't had any chronic symptoms since. I do have symptoms because I'm a person. Any person has mind-body symptoms. So let's talk about what mind-body symptoms are. Mind-body symptoms are the physical events in our bodies that happen because of what's going on in our minds. And that can be emotions, it can be thoughts, it can even be our relationship with ourselves. And in fact, in my column system, that's part of what goes on. There are 3 main ways that symptoms happen. And as I answer your questions, some of that's going to be around these columns, what I call columns, that are the 3 organizing principles about how to understand symptoms. So we'll get into that in a second. I did want to say, though, the idea behind this is get your questions answered. So, of course, the first thing you need to do is get your questions asked. Then it's my job to answer them as best as I can, but it's your job to decide, has that settled things for me? Has that gotten it answered to my full satisfaction? If it hasn't, I really encourage you, make a second question. There's no problem with follow-ups. There are no dumb questions, I promise you. And that's for multiple reasons, but one of the reasons there's no dumb questions is because what happens in your body is because of what happens in your mind. If we don't respect what's happening in your mind, whatever that is, then things will just continue in your head, and those continue right on in your body. And that's what was happening for me with back pain. It wasn't just emotional life that led to the back pain, though that was the onset, the beginning of it, which I'll explain in a minute. But the reason it persisted is my thought process stayed the same. I, of course, based on the information I had, thought I was injured, thought there was something wrong, thought it was degenerative. I had even been told by doctors it was going to last me the rest of my life. So if we think the same way, nothing changes. So let's talk a little bit about my system. But first, let me say hi to some people, and then we'll get into that. Okay, Debbie Grubbs, good to see you here. Rita, thanks for joining on Instagram as well. Mindful Physio and Pain Coach, thank you for joining us here. We're in the same field. We should link up. Rita says, hi, Dan. Good to see you, and thank you for the emojis. Darjoy Perk, thanks for joining us here. Pam Special says, hi, everybody. It's my first time live. Welcome. I certainly am thrilled to have you here. I do see you have a question. I'm going to get to that in a second, Pam, but I just want to keep saying hi to some people first, then explain my system, then I'll answer some questions, okay? So sit tight. I won't miss your question. Catherine Toomer, thank you for joining us here, and Debbie, thanks for saying hi directly. Hillel, I see that you have joined early. Hopefully you're here. I know you're in Israel, so it's very late for you, but if you're still up, I'm here with you. Karen Isaac says, hi, I'm out tonight. We'll listen later. Okay, well, Karen, good to see you. Direct shout out to you when you do watch this, and that is one thing. If you can't make it live, you can always rewatch it. You can rewatch it on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook. And these are almost every week. And you can even go back in time. There's a lot of these Q&As with tons and tons of questions. I also should say, my website is a good place to get engaged with some of these things, because we're also going to start having questions posted on the website for members. You can email me if you want to talk to me about that, dan@crushingdoubt.org. And there will be questions like this in written form. And as those build, it's going to be not like a live Q&A where I'm answering them, but I will be answering them in written forms. So you can just see, was my question asked? So we're going to start to build that out. I'll keep explaining as we go over the next number of weeks, now that I've built that part of the community. Marie Tony says, hey, from New Zealand. Really good to see you all the way from New Zealand. So it must be very early in the morning for you there, I guess. But not actually, maybe not even that early. Hopefully it's not totally the crack of dawn for you, but thank you for joining us here. So as a reminder, you're here to ask questions. I'm here to give you answers, and that will change what goes on in your mind, which then changes what goes on in your body. So let's get to this system. My system is called the column system, and it got its name from it actually was after I got better. I read Dr. John Sarno's works, and he's the one who saved my life. There were still things I didn't understand even after reading Sarno, though. And so I kept trying to think things through. Dr. Sarno helped me see the link between the mind and the body. He helped me see that my issues were not structural. He helped me see that medicine had really taken a left turn a long time ago and wasn't getting this right. And that all helped tremendously. He also was very helpful in recommending that it's so important to accept the diagnosis. So the concept of fighting doubt really does originate with Dr. Sarno. But what I found is we got to take it even further, because it's not just accepting the diagnosis. It's accepting that the diagnosis is right. It's accepting that it's benign. It's accepting that it's reversible. It's accepting all the ways that it's reversible. And it also is about rejecting all those little doubts that get in our heads, because even one of those can make you spin out of control with symptoms. So after I got better, I started to understand more and more about this. And what ended up happening is, as I would work with people, I would have them take a piece of paper and divide it into, you guessed it, 3 columns. Why? Because there are 3 different ways that symptoms manifest. Symptoms have 3 different functions. And I'm going to go through that now. The 3 columns are the emotions column, doubt column, and the power column. In the emotions column, symptoms are manifesting as a distraction. They are there to keep you from becoming aware of an emotional struggle of some kind or bad feeling that you don't want to know about. Sometimes it could even be a good feeling if it makes you feel uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable feeling. So this is just as Sarno said, actually. The emotions column follows Sarno pretty much to a T. The one difference with me in the emotions column is I also lay out a system of how to find those emotions. So he says, hey, it's caused by emotions. Go do therapy work, which is great and true. I say you don't actually need to do the therapy work if you know how to get at those emotions. So my system helps you understand how to do that. That's the emotions column. Now, listen, that's not just for all symptoms. That is specifically for the onset and uptick in symptoms. When the symptoms begin, or when the symptoms suddenly go way up, that is an emotions column event. There's an emotion you're not aware of. As soon as we discover it, we take away that symptom function, those symptoms go. Next, we've got the doubt column. The doubt column is not about your emotions. It's about your thinking, and it's about your thinking staying the same. So the doubt column explains symptoms that stay the same or are repetitive or very consistent. All of those things fit with the doubt column, and those are about your thinking. And as is true in the emotions column, where I give instructions on how to find the emotions, I also give instructions on how to change your thinking in the doubt column. And if we do that, we can disable the function of doubt, which, by the way, is protection. Doubt column symptoms want to make sure they set you up to be worried about certain things so that they can always protect you, keep you being careful, keep your mind away from discovering who you are, what your emotions are. You could think of doubt as a second layer of defense. The emotions come in and they need to be covered over in the emotions column, but it can't last that long, because eventually the emotion will change, or you might even discover it, but not if there's doubt. If there's doubt, it covers over everything. And that is why this my whole network is called Crushing Doubt, because it covers everything. If you've got doubt, you must work there first. Okay, I'm rambling a bit, so let me get over the power column, then we'll get questions. The power column is about your relationship with you. And these are for symptoms, not the acute onsets and upticks in symptoms of the emotions column, not the seemingly chronic, although nothing's actually chronic, in the doubt column. They are for symptom plateaus. When you've gotten it down quite a bit, your symptoms are down, your doubt's down, but the symptoms are hanging on in a long string and just hanging around, low level. That's called a symptom plateau, and that's about power. So power is where you discover more about your relationship with yourself. And the symptom function of the power column is communication. Your symptoms actually, and this is their ultimate goal, is to get you to understand yourself enough that you can actually live more peacefully with yourself. But that all gets buried under the emotions that are struggle, the doubts that come into our head. These all cover it over. Now, here's the good news. When you get those under control, the 2 other columns, everything flows towards power. So in my system, you start with doubt always. Bring down doubt, go over to the emotions and learn about those, and then everything flows towards power, where you get to learn about what was the story of your core suffering self, what the main way that you suffered. And when you can understand that, you'll start to empathize with yourself, have a different relationship with yourself, and then you're on your way towards a much longer lasting, not only symptom relief, but better life. Okay, that's the basic system. We're going to dive in and I will answer questions as we go. I'll answer them, though, in the columns way. I'm going to help you think through, why am I thinking about it in terms of these 3 columns? What does it mean and what do you do? Okay, let me say hi to a couple more people who joined in the interim. Jen Rausch, good to see you here. Mitch Lupo, 68, thank you for joining us on Instagram as well. Sarah Rudo, good to see you here. I owe you a response by email. I'm on it. I'm a little behind on it these days as I try to finish the book, which, by the way, my book is coming out in September. It is set. I just need to finish up the edit, almost there. And I really look forward to sharing that with you. Speaking of which, you can go to my website for any of these, any information, to get the newsletter, to learn about the book, to get the resources on my website. It's www.crushingdoubt.com. You can also go to .org. We're switching everything over to .com. But anyways, there's lots of good resources on that. I'll get into that in a little bit because I want to get to some questions. Then I'll tell you about some of the resources on there. Okay. Let's see. Kasim, I see you said, hey, Dan. I think I said that before, but I wanted to make sure. I never want to ignore anybody. Layla says, hi, Layla here. Good to see you. You're usually on Instagram, but I see you on YouTube. Thanks for joining us here. And Bloom EUS, thank you for joining us here as well. Okay, Sarah Ruda says, no, all good. Thanks, Dan. You are the best. Okay, that's about the email. So I do try to get back to people fast, but there can be a lot of people who want to hear back, and I'm doing my best. So thank you for your understanding, Sarah. I appreciate it. Starlight, 4 zeros and an 8. 8 is my favorite number. Thank you for joining us here. I like that name. Okay, Kasim, let's get started with you. Okay, Kasim says, recently when I pair an emotional theme with an uptick or a trigger, I notice the symptom goes down, but I also become very emotional too. Any ideas? Okay. This is a beautiful, it's a beautiful statement for us all. And by the way, I want to encourage you, anytime you're here or if you come to groups, when you're interacting with me, it's not just about when you're interacting with me. Every question should build out your knowledge and understanding of this. So we're going to talk about this as it relates to Kasim, but as it relates to all of you. So what Kasim is talking about is the exact work of the emotions column. When you do recognize, look at what happened. Look at the timing of this. Look at the feeling I had. And then it led to this uptick in a symptom or a triggering thing that got the symptom really going. When you do that, it does make the symptom go down. That's exactly what the emotions column is for. It is to take acute onsets and upticks in symptoms, get them under control. So Kasim, you're doing that. That's great. Now you're asking, but what about the next step? Because once that happens, I become very emotional. 2 suggestions for that. First, one's a suggestion, the other's an observation. I'm going to give the observation first. The observation is this. The fact that you become very emotional shows why the emotions column works. You get at the actual symptom, the actual feeling. You get in touch with it, and the symptom is no longer needed. So this is a statement, but I would say just let yourself have time with that feeling. It's not going to last long. It will last maybe a couple minutes, but you need to be able to do that. That's what the emotions column is for. So you're doing it just right. However, I want to add one thing that can be even more encouraging about where this is going to go. As you get more, let me say it to you this way, and Kasim, I think this will make sense because you've heard me say this before, but the emotions column and the power column are both emotional columns in nature. The doubt column is a thinking column. The emotions and power column are emotional columns, but the emotions column is simply for recognizing emotions. It's for recognizing and getting aware of emotions. And if you can do that, it takes away the symptoms. The power column is where you actually work on resolution in your emotional life. So in the emotions column, you're just getting it into your awareness. You're not even planning to do anything about it. You might just sit with it. In the power column, we move over and we start to talk about, well, what do I do here? How do I help myself? So the next thing I would say for you, you can sit with the emotions and just trust that if you have them, great. That's what the design of the emotions column was for. You're doing it just perfectly. But then you can also start to work on, from a power column standpoint, what does this emotion mean? What's its impact on me? Why does it fit with my overall story? Who am I? And I know these are big questions, but this actually is a good lead-in for me to talk about some of the resources on the website. because Kasim, you'll know this well, but this is part of what we work on in group. So in group, sorry, it looks like we got a bad connection on Instagram for a second. We're back. You didn't miss anything because I stalled. But in group, there are things we can work on a little bit differently than in this Q&A. It's a similar format in that you guys ask questions and I give answers, but we can get a lot further in any one sitting because it's a Zoom call. It's live. They're not recorded. And I might have a question for you about the question you asked, or you might have more input, or I might need input, or you might wonder, wait, what did you mean when you said that? And as a result, so much more happens in a short span of conversation because we're right there. So let me talk a little bit about the resources on the website. The book will be available, and that's a great starting place for many people. But another great starting point is my teaching seminars. The teaching seminars are available on the website. They are 8 sessions. They're 75 minutes long each. And they tell you everything you need to know about mind-body experience, about the mind-body field, about why everything happens. And the whole reason for them is to bring down doubt. It's supposed to explain everything. It even explains, why does one person in the mind-body field say this and another say this? I'm trying to bring it all together because if there are questions, you're going to be left spinning on those questions. I got to get you answers. So those seminars help to get that information. They also introduce the column system. Then what I found is I created those seminars and I was really happy that people were getting that information. And then it turned out, oh, wait, people need support implementing these ideas. That's what the group is for. So the group are Zoom calls. They usually are about 10 to 12 people at this current time. They will adjust over time. But we get you information about your moments. And it's really helpful, I find, not only to get the answer to your questions, but to see other people asking questions. They're going to have questions you didn't even know you had. And you'll be like, oh, wow, yes, I see that. So it's all information. Now, the Q&As work the same. We just don't get to have that same give and take. Okay, so this is especially true when it comes to power. And I'm also starting a new power column group. That'll be up and running in July. So keep an eye out for that. Sign up for my newsletter if you want information on that. Okay. So it's www.crushingdoubt.com. All right. I got to jump back because there was a question that I promised I would not miss, and I won't, from Pam. So Pam, and I know this is your first time here as well, so especially want to make sure you get what you need right away. Okay. How do you handle conditioned responses? Okay. Actually, this is perfect because with Kasim, and Kasim, I want you to follow up about that if I answered you well enough about power column work, because there's all kinds of things to do in the power column about getting yourself settled through understanding yourself, but we can talk more about that. Now, Kasim did mention something called a trigger. A trigger is something from the environment, like it's an event that happens, it's a movement you made, it's an exercise you did. You know, if you were shoveling snow or if you went swimming and you were doing a certain motion. These are things that can become very plausibly convincing that we hurt ourselves. I'm going to put it in quotes because it does actually hurt when you have a trigger, but it is a mind-body response. The mind-body defense is grabbing on to that experience and saying, now you've got an issue because of the physical event when it really was a mind-body thing. So when Pam's asking about conditioned responses, in a way that's very related. A conditioned response, though, is what happens when a trigger becomes a very regular experience. For example, if you have experienced having pain when you get up from a chair, that means when you get up from a chair next time, you're going to expect to have pain when you get up from that chair. That's a conditioned response. You have started to become prepared for that experience. That's what a conditioned response means, at least to me, Pam. If that's different than what you're thinking, please do tell me, because it doesn't matter what I think. It only matters what you think. But how do you handle conditioned responses? The first thing is to bring down doubt overall. It's hard enough to deal with a conditioned response of, oh my God, it's going to hurt when I do this, with doubt just going crazy. When I had the back pain, I had conditioned responses all the time, but I also had major doubt. I had all kinds of reasons to expect, well, my back is injured or I'm having an issue, or there was no reason to expect it to go differently. So we have to bring down doubt, because what's that going to do, Pam? And actually everybody, that's for Pam, but it's for everybody. When you then get up, you can actually start to challenge the thinking. You can say, now, wait a minute. I'm expecting to have this, but it's the expectation that leads to it. It's not a herniated disc or a structural problem or something that's unchangeable. It's none of that. It's none of that stuff. So you want to start bringing down doubt. And here's another suggestion, Pam. When you do the movement, when you're actually doing the movement, I encourage people, I want you to think about one of two things. I want you to either think emotionally, meaning I'm going to think about my emotional life. I'm going to get up and think about, oh, my nephew just left the trip, or I'm worried about my daughter, or my wife said this, or something happened at work. I'm going to think emotionally while I'm moving. So as I start to get up, instead of thinking, I think this might hurt, instead of doing that, I'm going to get up and think, how am I feeling today? How am I doing? Where am I in my life? And just by thinking of that, it really disables that conditioned response. The other thing you can do is when you get up, you can directly target the doubt. You can just be like, all this is fear. Stop. I'm not going to be afraid of it. I don't need to be afraid of it. As long as I'm not afraid of it, it's not going to hurt in the same way. And if you challenge it that way, that often helps. Now, sometimes it may hurt, but I have a thing that I say, which is it can hurt, but it cannot harm. Nothing bad is happening. And you need to remember that. So even if it does hurt, it's not going to continue to hurt, and it's not going to do any harm. So you need to start experimenting with that. You need to start pushing back against that conditioned response. The one thing I will say, though, is when you're fighting back against a conditioned response or a trigger, and you're finding it's too hard or it really hurts every time, I would actually back off then, because that's only building doubt. That's making you feel like, well, it really does hurt every time I move, and it's going to continue, right? You're starting to build doubt. So then I want you to back up and just start working on doubt in general. Just start looking at, is this mind-body experience? There are 3 levels of doubt. Let's talk about this now, because it's a good time for this. The first level of doubt is this mind-body or not? You got to get that under control. As long as you're like, I'm certain it's mind-body, then you wouldn't be as worried about it hurting. Hurting sucks, but if it hurts because of a mind-body thing, you're not in danger. Level 2 doubt is my symptom harder to change than others? But I'll tell you what, level 1 doubt is the key with conditioned responses. If you're still wondering, is this mind-body or not? Let's do some work to get that resolved. My seminars would be great for that. My book will be great for that. Coming to this Q&A is great for that. Anything that gets you answers and information. Pam, do tell me if I answered your question well enough, and we'll go from there, okay? All right, Darjoy Perk said, I retired last week. I do remember that. Meeting friends, errands all week. Symptoms so high and exhausted, so canceled for the rest of the week. Don't want to be reclusive and want to do exposure therapy. Continue. Hold on one second. Is it okay to take a couple months to retreat inward and be unavailable to other people? Or am I letting my symptoms win by isolating for a month or 2? I retired early to heal. Okay. Thank you for sharing all of that, Darlene. So here's what I'd say. There's a couple things I would say, and I'm going to give you my initial answer, but as always, follow up as needed, because this is just my initial answer. I have another saying. I have lots of sayings. It's a big part of how I keep things organized is these sayings that I can bring back into my mind, because we have to control how we're thinking. So one of my sayings here is, it does not matter what you do. It matters what you're thinking while you do it. So if you took a couple of months and you said, you know what, I can give myself this space. I'm not running for my symptoms. I'm just organizing things. And I know that I'm headed in the right path. That's a good use of your time. If you instead say, I can't take any of this, I need to retreat, it's too much, I'm scared, that could be building doubt. Now, I'm not saying it's going in one direction or another, Darlene. You're the one who's going to know. But I want you to ask the question, will this increase my doubt or decrease my doubt? The funny thing is, any action can actually do one or the other. It can go in either direction. So you need to ask yourself the question, will that help or not? And you know what? Sometimes it's going to help on one day, and on another day, it's going to be the opposite. I want you to use that as your guideline. Is this going to increase my doubt or make it worse? Okay, so I understand what you're saying. Sometimes pushing through the doubt and then having the symptoms get worse, that's only going to increase your doubt. So that's no good. You know, one of the things that I find is an advantage of the way I think and the column system is that it accounts for the fact that we are moment-to-moment beings. It does not work the same way all the time. There's no one hard and fast rule that we can give you, but the columns give you 3 different columns with different strategies, different ways to understand what's happening, different ways to shift at different moments. And so within the column structure, there's this thing in the doubt column that can help you. Will this increase your doubt or not? I don't have the answer to that. Only you would. But let's do a follow-up. I want you to tell me what you think about that, okay? Let's go from there. All right. Oh, Ann Whitaker Butts, thanks for joining us here. Sorry, I meant to say hi earlier. Okay, Pam said sitting is my issue. Okay, so I've used a good example there. Yes, thank you for my answer. I need to work on doubt. All right, so keep in mind also, whatever's going to increase your doubt, you don't want to do. What is going to decrease your doubt is what you do want to do. And sometimes decreasing doubt requires help from another person. And that's what my seminars are for. That's what my groups are for. That's what my community is for. That's what this Q&A is for. So you're not in it alone. One of the reasons I do this, and one of the reasons I do everything I do, is I'm trying to give what I wished was there when I was trying to get better. Okay, Ann Whitaker Butts, thank you for saying hi. She says, good to be here. Really good to have you here, Ann. Please do let us know if you have any questions. Sarah Igo, thanks for joining us here as well. All right. Starlight, I see you have a question. Oh, it's Sophie. Okay. Sophie, I'll be with you in 1 second, but I'm going to head over to YouTube and the YouTube questions, make sure I'm not missing anything there. I do want to tell everybody, by the way, if I do miss any questions, please, 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 please ask them again, because I do not want anyone to not only not get their question answered, I don't want anybody to feel ignored, because one of the biggest things that I try to do in this community is any interaction you have here, I want your doubt to come down and I want your power to be up. And if you get ignored or your question gets missed, your power could go down. And I don't want that. So I'm here with you. Okay. Christopher Wright, thank you for joining us here, Christopher. Christopher says, are associations with places like hallways, phone screens, sitting positions triggering my visual and head symptoms part of TMS? So TMS is what Sarno called mind-body symptoms, tension myositis syndrome. It was originally for back pain. He realized it was much larger than that. TMS is one of those terms that we all use. That's the equivalent of mind-body symptoms. And how do I overcome this triggering? I don't avoid any of these. Okay, so Christopher, first thing I'm going to say is definitively yes. Those are triggers, just like anything else in mind-body experience. Any of your expectations about any of your behaviors, if you have expectations that it could lead to symptoms, that's a part of the mind-body experience. We want to get in there and really change what we're expecting. And here's the good news. This is for you, Christopher, but it's really good news for everybody. Every trigger, anything that you want to challenge, you can actually shift. You're not stuck with anything. In my experience with mind-body experience, we can always change what goes on in our minds. We just need the right tools. And the columns provide those tools. You're asking a question that would fit into the doubt column. What do I do about these things? Should I, and I know you said you don't avoid any of them, but even when you go for them, if it raises doubt, it's still going to be a problem. So what I want to do instead is get you convinced, completely convinced, with information, science, logic, the columns, all this organizing information to show you, actually, you are not in danger from any of those things. They could even lead to symptoms if you believe they will, but you're not always going to believe they will as we start to challenge it. I'll give you an example. After I had gotten a lot better, but not all better, I was still doing these stretches that my chiropractor had showed me. I was like, well, my back pain's better, but I'm doing these stretches. And I thought to myself, what am I going to do here? Do I just keep doing these stretches even though I don't really believe I need to do them anymore? And so I decided, I'm going to challenge that. This is a trigger. And I said, I shouldn't need to do this anymore. If I really, and I said to myself, do you believe in Sarno or not? And I said, I do. So now I'm going to try to do this. And I tried to go without stretching, or I tried to get up from the floor in a more normal way than I had in a long time. And I'll tell you what, challenging those triggers when you're ready, it's always going to be a leap forward. Even if it knocks you back or temporarily, you'll get there eventually and you will be able to conquer any trigger. But the key is knowing I've got to be thinking the right thing when I do it. Remember that rule. Doesn't matter what you do. It matters what you're thinking while you do it. Well, I needed to know that I could control what I'd be thinking while I do it and keep challenging that. And as I did it, eventually you get rid of triggers, because if you do it even one time without it happening, it's over. You've won the battle. And you do that over and over and over until you win all the battles. All right, Christopher, let me know if that makes sense to you. Okay, Layla, thank you again for being here. Layla said, my initial reaction to my symptom is still fear, even if the knowledge, now, even when I can accept it. Fear is still the initial reaction. How can I respond to fear in these moments to reduce it? Okay, I'm going to say a couple things, Layla, and as always, follow up as needed. So the first thing is this. And you ask a really key question here. What you're saying basically is, I have enough information in the doubt column that I don't believe that there's a mind-body problem, but I still have such fear. Well, what that says to me is we're ready. Not that we haven't already been doing this, Layla, but I think we need to really dive into this more. This is where power column work comes in, because typically when people have lasting fears, even when they have the right information, that means they have fears within themselves about their living, their own internal living, because the doubt column is about fears that come from a lack of information. When you get the information, the doubts come down and it's over. But the power column is where we go for what I call level 3 doubt. I got sidetracked on this. Level 1 doubt is about whether you have a mind-body symptom. Level 2 doubt is whether your mind-body symptom is different and hard to resolve. Level 3 doubt is about, can I resolve this? Is there something about me that's going to stand in the way? So Layla, what your question, and I mean this as good news because I know exactly what it is and what to do about it. It's screaming power column. It's saying, I can't get the fear down even when I have the information. You're not alone with that, by the way. Lots and lots of people are that way. That's what the power column is for, is to get your fears, concerns, conflicts, whatever it is, to finally get you answers about how you're going to live. And so what I want to encourage you is, you're not actually always going to be afraid. I know it's hard to believe, but I can't even tell you how afraid I used to be and how I felt alone and powerless for over 40 years of my life. I know that as I talk now, it sure doesn't seem that way. It isn't that way now, but it was. When I got things under control in terms of understanding myself at that level, it changed everything. And that's what will happen for you. And I'm here with you, and we will do it. You're not going to have that fear. So the main answer is, okay, your fear is still that initial reaction. At least we know why. The power column tells us why. And the power column also tells us what we can do about it. So I got a roadmap out of this. There's not a problem at all. But that's my good news. The question is, do you believe it? Does that feel good to you? Does it feel like it answers your question enough? Let's go from there, okay? Kasim then said, yes, that makes sense. And so this was when we were talking about the emotional themes, discovering them, becoming emotional, and what to do about it, which, by the way, also flows towards power. Then Kasim said, I think because I am sitting and accepting my trauma, I am allowing it to come up. For years, I suppressed it. That's right. So when that's happening, I just want to encourage Kasim and everyone else about this. When you're discovering things in the power column, there can often be a period where you feel a lot of stuff. And that doesn't last that long. That's a processing. And sometimes it even happens in physical form. I know there's somebody in group who talks about this, but I had this experience too, where he's just shaking all the time. And he said, for some reason, I feel better after I do it, because it's his body processing the power column experience. We got to give ourselves time. Remember, the function of the power column symptom, communication. It wants you to know about something. All right. So yes, Kasim, you're doing everything just right. This is going swimmingly. We just got to keep it up. All right? Keep up the good work. Christopher Wright has a follow-up. He says, makes sense. It's when I start thinking even a little, I wonder if this is physical in terms of what if. It will definitely bring doubts and thus after symptoms get heavy. That's exactly right, Christopher. So here's the thing. As we do more of this work, even if it's just this Q&A, however we want to do it, you're going to get so certain that those little doubts will come in and you will just, no, I'm not dealing with that. That's what happens for me with doubts. I still have doubts. Everybody has doubts. It's part of the natural process of the human mind, but I just don't buy them anymore. I've seen doubt operate so many times, and I've torn it down so many times that I think it's a pathological liar every time, and I don't even consider it. And so much so that I barely even think physically at all anymore. You know, maybe if something happens, if I run into a brick wall, I'm going to think physically for a little bit. but it's going to heal very fast. Mostly I just think emotionally. I think of my body as a flowing emotion, and you are going to get there as we bring down doubt. You're not even going to go there anymore. And then doubt's going to have to try little things because it can't get away with that. All right. I hope that helps, but please do let me know. Okay. So Starlight, you said, hi, Dan, this is Sophie. I'm actually watching over on YouTube, but cannot chat there. Good to be here. All right. Well, it is great to have you with us. And Sophie, please do let me know if there's anything you need. And wherever you can chat, put it in and we'll go from there. All right. DMR LCSW has joined us here. Thank you for joining us here. Okay, Darlene has a follow-up. That makes sense with different days, different situations, day by day. Exactly. We're moment-to-moment beings. I'll say more about that in a second. I'm a social person and miss that part of me, but that's part of how I got symptoms. I will ask myself the question as I go along. Thank you, Dan. Okay, so that's great. And just keep doing that. We can reevaluate. We can switch. Let's say you take a week off and you find, you know what, my symptoms are getting worse and I'm starting to feel more doubt. Then we make an adjustment. And that's what moment-to-moment experience is about, is recognizing we always can make a change. And by the way, you don't have to make those changes alone. If I can be helpful, come here and ask me, or send me an email, dan@crushingdoubt.org. When we get that community really up and running on the website, that's going to be really exciting, because we have forums there to talk about these things. And by the way, all of these forums, which is different than in a lot of the mind-body world, they're so focused on making sure you do not leave with more doubt than you came in with. Very important, because a lot of times people go for help and they get some help, but they also get a doubt. And then how much help is it? They're spinning in doubt. So we're going to get you there. What we have to do is study this. Try to think of yourself as a science experiment. All right, when I do this, this happens. Then I need to make a change. Okay, we got to do it, run a new experiment, and we'll get there. It's day by day, and you're going to learn things about this. By the way, Darlene, it sounds like one of the things that goes on is the world of interpersonal interactions is loaded with all kinds of stuff for you, and you're going to be able to sort that out and make changes. And this is where the groups are especially helpful, and maybe the Power Column group especially. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that, because you might need to start with doubt. But the groups in general, they give you a place to just work on these things, to discover more and just get more information. So everybody, please do let me know if you have questions about it. I'm happy to answer them. Okay, and then Darlene said, I think I felt obligated to see people now that I have free time and resented Sarno's goodist. All right, so Sarno's concept of goodist was incredibly helpful for me as well. I've never felt so well described in a book or anywhere, actually, than when I read about goodists. And I was like, oh, okay, so here's what Sarno's goodists are. Goodists are people who are always trying to people please, do well by people, be good, do their best. There's a perfectionistic streak. I don't mean it critically, and I have it myself, but people, are really working very hard. So we have to resituate ourselves. And ultimately, that's going to be a Power Column thing. How do we adjust that? But you're really on the right path, Darlene. I think that sounds good. Pam says, that's me too. And actually, Pam, I think you were talking about what Darlene said, but I don't know, actually. So if there's something you wanted to elaborate on that, please do let me know. I'm trying to think where we were in the flow of things when you might have said that. In any case, I'm glad you're seeing yourself in some other people. That can also be really helpful. All right. Hillel, good to see you here. Hillel says, hi, Dan. What would you suggest to someone who is experienced in mind-body and was able to reduce pain in certain positions but not in others, even if he tried for many months, in terms of doubt? I don't have level 1 doubt. We went through the levels of doubt, which I'll go through again if needed, but I do have level 2 and 3. Although I've successfully applied the knowledge to certain movements, it doesn't work for others, no matter how much I've tried. Okay. Really important distinctions that we make here, that you're making here, Hillel. So, and it's so interesting because every single one of these questions, you guys don't know how much you're helping all kinds of other people, even when you ask these questions, because people will look later and they may have the exact same question. And we're just building a knowledge base for so many people. So when Hillel says, I don't have level 1 doubt, what he means is he knows his symptoms are mind-body. Totally certain about that. No level 1 doubt. But he does have level 2 doubt, which is my symptom harder to get rid of than others, including certain positions? And level 3 doubt, can I do this? Is there something wrong with me or some limitation that I have? Those are the areas that are contributing to these doubts. And Hillel, from what you're saying, it's really about certain movements. You've successfully done certain movements, not others. I'll get into in a second how to deal with that. Bon Rap, I wanted to say hi to you on Instagram. Thank you for joining here. And whenever people come in the middle, feel free to ask me questions. We're talking about mind-body issues. I have a whole system for dealing with this, and I describe that as I answer questions here. And it's so important to get your questions answered, or else they just keep on going. Okay, now, Marie Tony had a question related to this. What was level 3 doubt? Please, I missed it. So level 3 doubt is, well, let me just go through all three of them again. Level 1 doubt is when you're not sure it's mind, body, or not. Could this be something structural or not? Once that's resolved, level 2 doubt can often be behind it, where you think, but my symptom's hard to resolve, or maybe this part of a symptom is hard to resolve. And hello, that's part of what you're experiencing. You think this movement, this part of the symptom is harder to resolve than others. And guess what? You have evidence to show it. That's been your experience, but that's only because of belief. The movements are feeding that. What I would say is that means there's a trigger there that you haven't been ready to conquer just yet. Now I think you can, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. That's the level 2 doubt part of things. Level 3 doubt is when you doubt that you've got it within you. Like if you're like, well, but I'm an obsessive thinker and I'm just never going to be able to change my mind. That's a level 3 doubt. Everyone can change their mind. So we need to address that. So Marie Tony, I hope that addresses your question about what level 3 doubt is. Back to you, Hillel, about what to do about these different kind of movements. So the main thing that you need to do is challenge doubt. Doubt is actually a total weakling, and it doesn't present that way. It seems like it's going to be really strong. But if you come at it and you say, no, I'm onto you. This is a bunch of crap. I'm not going to buy it. You are just trying to get me to settle into to letting you have this movement. That's territory it has over you. We got to take back all the territory from doubt. So what I would do is I would go in and say, this does not make sense. We got to tell doubt, you're not making sense. I'm not listening to you. It doesn't make sense that I can do this one movement and I can't do this movement. It really doesn't, especially once you've gotten level 1 doubt down. You know this is mind body. So if you know it's mind body and you know doubt makes no sense, then all that's left is that conditioned response that Pam and I talked about. You're worried about it. But then I want you to remind yourself of a couple things. One, it can hurt, but it cannot harm. There's nothing bad that can happen, even if it did hurt. Nothing bad is going to happen from it. So you don't have that much to risk. The worst thing that happens is it hurts and your doubt goes up a little bit. You'll circle the wagons and come back to it. All right? The next thing that can help you is to think emotionally, to think of your body as a flowing emotion. You're not going to hurt if you're not afraid. In this case, this is about fear. Fear is one of the forms of doubt. It's the strongest form of doubt. There's fear, confusion, lack of certainty, and unanswered questions. And the higher up the scariness of things, or the higher up the lack of clarity is, the higher the doubt. So I don't know if you have some fear about it or uncertain about it or where we would place that, but you've got to decide, you know what? This doesn't make sense. You just do not buy into doubt. I'm not buying into it. Now, if you can push that way, you should be able to get through this. It's happened to me many times. I've challenged a trigger and it hurt a little, but not nearly as much as I expected. And I was like, well, that's a sign that I'm onto this. If it were really a problem and I wasn't going to resolve it, then that wouldn't have happened. So I want you to double down on this, Hillel. Start challenging doubt. Start recognizing, you know what? I can be powerful here. And by the way, that's also how you resolve level 3 doubt, is you say, I'm allowed to be powerful. I've lived enough of my life not being powerful, and I'm going to get right to it. Okay? All right. Let's see. Okay, James Roof, thanks for joining us here. James, I did see your comment on YouTube. I'm going to get back to you on that as well. I feel so alone with my 16 months of chronic back pain. I know you said you had none before this. Walking is hard, especially emotionally. Would love a group setting with people facing similar journey on the mind-body syndrome. So that's exactly what I've got, James. I would love to connect with you about that. If you want to email me, dan@crushingdoubt.org. But you can also look at my website, www.crushingdoubt.com or .org. And one way you could go, and this is something I usually do recommend, if you're going to come to my groups, which you can always, anybody can come, just sign up and show up, and I'll help get you oriented. But if you want to have the best experience, it really helps to take the seminar classes before, because they orient you to what the system is that we'll be working with there. I can explain more to you about that though, James. And, everybody's got different situations and, what they can afford, what they can manage in terms of time. So we of course can talk about it, but let's talk. You do not have to be stuck with this. And by the way, if there are people out there who are worried that they don't have the resources and stuff, I've developed systems for virtually anybody to get what they need. So let's keep talking about it, James. You're not going to be stuck with this. I can promise you that. We just need to get you the right information. I had 8 years of this, and I felt completely alone, crushed, dominated by this. You can do this. I can help you do this. You just need the right information. Okay? Let me know if that helps. Okay, Marie Tony, let's see. She says, my question. I have a smallish scoliosis S curve. When I'm tense and stressed, naturally, I hold myself in that pattern more. This is a super trigger because if I see myself with my belly button misaligned, one hip move more forwards and shoulder lower than other, I completely freak out and end up in bed for most of the day for fear of spasms, anxiety, and fatigue. Recently, I've discovered I have chronic Lyme disease, and natural health practitioners are saying the inflammation in my spine is due to, I hope there's a continuation. Marie, it cut off there, so I don't see what you said. If you want to fill in more, you can, but it left off at natural health practitioners saying the inflammation of my spine is due to. Okay, so here's what I'm going to say. A couple of things. This is not just for Marie, but it's for everybody, because we're all trying to bring down doubt. So one thing, and I mean this is good news, Marie, but we can discuss it more. I don't want to just tell you something and then you go on believing whatever you go on believing. It doesn't help if it doesn't change what you believe. But there are tons and tons of studies that show that scoliosis is not actually a cause of pain. I understand why people could think that it would be. It sounds like it could be painful. It is, a contorted position. But here's what's really happening. Your muscles are getting pulled into that familiar pattern when you're stressed out. And it's the muscles pulling that cause this. You're not actually having pain from the position. You're having pain from the same thing that's making the muscles pull. It's all kinds of mind-body experience. Spasms, anxiety, fatigue, inflammation even. All of these things the mind can make happen. Here's the way that I think about it, Marie, and I hope this will be helpful. If the body can already do it, if the body has that function, then the mind is perfectly capable of taking that function and using it for a mind-body symptom. And the more that happens, the more we spin out of control. Then we get afraid. And there's a lot of fear here. So you've got a high level of doubt. But here's the good news. If we start tearing into that, especially with really good information, this is all going to come down. Now, I have to tell you more about it, but we got to get you the right information. Marie, you'd be a perfect candidate for my seminars to get going on understanding what is all this? How can I understand how this is all working? That's what the seminars are for, is to describe. How does this all work? Why does it work this way? Why have doctors missed this? Why do we not understand this? Why does society think so differently about this? You need all of those answers. And they're all right there in the seminar, in this Q&A, in my groups. So what I want to tell you, Marie, is that I totally understand this being triggering, but I really want to encourage you. I promise you that is not causing your pain. That's not causing any of your symptoms. In fact, it is a symptom. The S curve, that is a symptom. It's not the cause. It's just another symptom. Now, as always, it doesn't matter what I think. It only matters what you think. So I want to know what you think about that, Marie. We are going to wrap up shortly here, but I do want to hear what you think about that. Okay? Lynn Slavensky, thanks for joining us here. She says, hi, tuning in late. We'll listen tomorrow. Glad to have you here, Lynn, and let me know what you think as you do listen. Okay. And then Layla says, I guess I have level 2, especially because I have experienced TMJ and it's jaw pain and migraines and believe this more for pain. Twitching seems much harder for me to believe. That's level 2 doubt. Yep. I doubt if that is a symptom that can go away, especially because it happens all over. Okay, that's 100% level 2 doubt, Layla. And we'll certainly work at that. But the reality is, doubt can only last so long. If we keep working against it, it's going to break. And you know why it's going to break? Because it's wrong. Liars, there's always a crack in their story. And when you start to see it, you won't be able to unsee it. We're making progress already. And I know you know that we are, but we'll keep at it. Okay, Layla? Please do let me know what you think. All right. Darlene says, thank you so much. Your answers to others is so helpful too. I've also considered myself my own personal science experiment, annoying, often very scary, working on, sometimes fascinating. The science experiment becomes much more joyful as you work at these things and get things more under control. Okay, so Rita says, from the peanut gallery, chronic Lyme is a made-up label. So I do want to say something about that. There's actually, in medicine, there's lots of arguments about that. In my experience, chronic Lyme and so many other things are labels that do get put on things when doctors simply can't figure out what's going on, and they usually take legitimate pieces of information and then kind of weld it on to this diagnosis. So I do think that it is helpful, at least, to challenge the idea that so many diagnoses end up just being mind-body. Now, we should talk about it more. Actually, that was Marie, you were talking about chronic Lyme, right? So listen, I would want to have a discussion with you that works for you about this. It doesn't matter what I think or anybody else thinks. It matters what you think. And we need but I do want to encourage you. We can have a discussion. We can have a discussion that can help one way or another. I'm not weighing in on one side or another. I'm just saying, hey, let's consider this. Because with doubt, you've got to observe the doubt. That means call it into question, wonder about it. So let's do that if you're up for it. Okay, Scotty Styles, thanks for joining us and saying hello. Thanks for all of your glorious emojis. I love them all the time. Let's see. I did miss a question or two here. Okay, Sarah Rudo. Dan, a bit stuck in fear and anger. I know why and sit with the feelings, but projection of symptoms is hard for me too. I use a lot of compassion, mindfulness, and sometimes just the F off to those projections of pain. But wondering if you have advice. I have a few exciting job offers, but the fear of pain is hard for me. I tend to just go back to mindful awareness and compassion. Okay. Well, I want to say a couple things. One, Sarah, I know from some things you've told me, you're doing fantastic work. You are making great progress. And I think you actually know that in a broad perspective. But when it comes to this, this is one tip that could be helpful to you in what you're describing. The symptoms and how they make us feel, they actually are telling us how we feel emotionally. Okay, so if you're having fear of a symptom, that means you're afraid inside about an emotional experience. So I think, this is a hunch, Sarah, but let's look at it. I think as you're considering these career options, I think you're feeling afraid. What if I make the wrong choice? These are exciting job offers. I got to get the right thing. I'm not saying that is what's going on, but it's the type of thing to look at. I know there is fear happening, and it's emotional fear. Your symptoms are manifesting in a fearful sort of way because of that. Now, of course, it's also can come from the fact that you've had it for a while or there's a triggering response. It's understandable to have fear of symptoms. But again, I really want to encourage Sarah and you all, when you're having a symptom, it's usually expressing the very thing that is emotionally happening. If a symptom's kind of irritating, you're irritated. If it's terrifying, you're terrified. And not just of the symptom. So I would want you to go back into, this is power column work, Sarah, really. Once you bring down doubt enough, you can start to think about, why do I have that hang up with me, and where am I getting stuck? And you even use those words, I think, a bit stuck. There's certain words that I hear that are very power column-y words. Feeling frustrated, stuck, all those symptom plateau ideas. This is a power column thing, if you ask me, Sarah. But as always, let's see if that fits with what you think, and we'll go from there. Okay, again, if I missed any questions, please do let me know. I've got a couple more on YouTube that I want to get to. Looks like Hillel, we've got to get to some follow-up from you, and then I think we're up to date. Oh, okay. Marie Tony has a response also. Let me just get to that first. Okay, Marie said, yes, thank you. I've heard this many times, and at times I feel confident with this. Okay. The rest of my message said, I'm 46. My partner, mother, and father have all passed. I'm so sorry to hear that. In parenting solo with no family in this country, this is so aligned with my spine being a support structure. Yeah, you are carrying a lot of weight on your back. And that's true metaphorically, and that's playing out in the mind-body experience. I want to get you really confident in this. I know you said at times you feel confident with this, but I can get you fully confident. And I don't just mean me, but we. That's what we do here. And we can certainly do that. Okay, so Marie said, yes, please. I'm so up for that talk. Thank you. Let's talk. Okay, send me an email, dan@crushingdoubt.org, or however you want to contact me. Check out my website, whatever you want, and we're going to talk. We can get you out of this. One of the things I love about my work is I can get you all out of everything. There's no chronic symptom that any of you need to have ever. We could, we're human beings, so we're going to have mind-body experience, but we're never stuck with anything, I promise you. Anything that is not very clearly structural, you're not stuck with. We can get it. Okay, Marie says, thanks so much, Dan. It's my pleasure, Marie. Really great to have you here all the way from New Zealand. And let's talk. That'll be great. Okay, back to you, Hillel. Practically speaking, should I just push through the conditional response daily for long periods of time while reminding myself it doesn't make sense? And then he said, so I shouldn't just challenge the constrained movement by saying it's not dangerous. I should also question the doubt directly, demanding, prove to me that it's dangerous. Yeah, ask it, why would it be dangerous? You got nothing structural. Why would it be? And then you can even remember the only reason it could be dangerous. Well, let's take that word out, in fact. Let's throw that word out. You said it's not dangerous. Prove to me that it's dangerous. We can get certain about it. It's not dangerous. But the only reason it can even cause a symptom at all is if it can make you doubt. So there's that phrase that FDR said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. That's what doubt's like. It can't hurt us. It can make us doubt. Darlene said, will your book be on Audible? It will be, actually. Would love to hear your words. Yes, it'll be on Audible, and I will be reading it. That one will probably take an extra couple of months before it gets to that point, but hopefully October, I'd have that out to you guys. So it will be, and I think it can really help to hear specifically for me. I'll know how to read it, and I know how I want to kind of enunciate things. Okay, Hillel then said, so I shouldn't, okay, we already covered that. Hold on one second. So just challenge the conditioned movement, I see, not the constrained movement. Got it. All right. So I should challenge the conditioned movement by moving and challenge doubt directly, demanding, prove to me that it's dangerous with logic, not experience. Exactly. This is actually a battle of wills in terms of understanding. And the fact is, doubt's going to lose. It does not have the goods. It's completely full of crap. And you're always going to find that. So get nasty with it. Have the will to beat it. It could win a battle or two here. It's going to lose the longer it's out there. It's like a pathological, it's not only like a pathological liar, it's like a pathological liar on the stand in a legal case. It's going to get into trouble if it keeps talking. You make it talk. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Okay, Darlene says, awesome. My pleasure. I'm really excited. I can't wait to get it out to you guys. It's almost done. And there's so many great things about that. And we're going to wrap up here. But one of the great things is we're going to be able to have so many discussions based on that. This whole community, I'm hoping, will read that book and we will discuss various things that I said and the way to think about it. And it's all targeted to crush doubt, of course. All right. Hillel said, I rephrased a few times and deleted the previous comments, but for some reason, YouTube apparently didn't delete it. YouTube tries to remember everything, I suppose. But guess what, Hillel? Doesn't matter, because when it comes down to it, each of us is in a mind-body battle with ourselves, and we are going to win it. It doesn't matter what's said, ups and downs, moment-to-moment experience, as long as we keep organizing this, and that's what the 3 columns do. There's only 3 columns, and they describe everything. As I came up with this system, I kept looking at it and being like, is there a 4th column? Am I missing something? I have been incredibly pleased at the fact that it covers everything. If we institute the columns, you can control all acute onsets and upticks in symptoms to a very large degree. And if you have one happen here and there, you can figure out what it was. So you're always making gains there. You have nothing that would need to be chronic at all, because the doubt column takes care of all of that. And symptom plateaus can be solved also. And not only that, it can move you into power in your own life. So this has been a pleasure as always, guys. I am going to be away for the next 2 weeks from the Q&As, but I will be back Thursday, July 11th will be the first day back for that. New episodes of the podcast will be coming soon. The book's got to come out first, or at least I have to finish it first. And we'll go from there. Guys, keep asking your questions, though. You got to get your questions answered. Keep them coming, okay? Hillel says it's very different than reminding myself that it shouldn't cause pain. It's not letting in him any space, not just reminding. Exactly. We gotta be the aggressor with doubt. We can't just say, I'll keep reminding myself, because that there's a little bit of, I don't mean this towards you, Hillel, or anybody actually, but if we get passive with doubt, it can just crawl in. We're going to get aggressive with it. We're going to go after it. It starts to have to defend itself. I actually do this. I'll say one last thing here. I do this when people who really believe in structural arguments start attacking me about mind-body belief. I turn it on them. I say, hold on a second. How come you're not defending yourself at all? How come your theories are just accepted? Explain them to me. And explain to me how the New England Journal of Medicine tells you you're wrong. And so does the Journal of the American Medical Association. Did you even know that? And then they're like, they're totally on their heels. We do the same thing with doubt. And all it takes is information. We've got the information. So guys, it is a pleasure. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of my community. We'll keep it up. And I look forward to more soon. Okay. Thanks all. See you soon.